First class was a master class. We got to learn the ins and outs, the history, production, all of the good stuff that makes Genever, Genever. Today, we are very fortunate because not only are we talking about Genever, but we are doing that with a bunch of really amazing people. I'm going to get to the two who are leading the conversation today in just one moment, but I want to just shout out all of the awesome people who scored so high on the quiz that they won themselves a little tasting kit that includes some delicious cheeses that we will be pairing later on during the tasting. So hello, we're so glad to have all of you here. All right, so now I've got two incredible people I want to introduce you to. The first is the Master Distiller of Lucas Bols. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Piet here. So Piet is the Master Distiller at Lucas Bols and runs the distillery in Amsterdam. He's responsible for product development, the quality of all the recipes, basically all that stuff that makes you love Bols Genever. It's this guy who did it. So we've got Piet here with us today. We are so excited to hear directly from the man himself how he makes his delicious, delicious product. And fortunately, we have an amazing person to lead the conversation. Zach Patterson, who you all met a couple of weeks ago during the masterclass, will be leading the session today. You may have met Zach at one of the many bars that he is the owner operator of. I know that I've spent a lot of time at Melrose Umbrella Company. I think pretty much everybody has if they've been to LA. But he's an incredible entrepreneur and an expert when it comes to all things Genever. So Zach, I'm going to pass it over to you, my friend.
Well, thank you, Lindsay, for that amazing introduction. It's hard to be considered an expert of anything when I have Piet on this with all of us. I know nothing in comparison to this man. So we're all in for a treat because, you know, the last one was called the masterclass, but we have the true master here with Piet. So I encourage everybody as we go through all of this to ask questions, get involved, and let's just have a really, really fun time as we go through and do all this. Is everyone excited?
I am.
Yes, that's one. Okay. Has anybody, aside from myself, already poured a little Genever in advance? Nope, no. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. All right. I mean, it's 11 a.m. where I'm at. I do all over the place. All right. So this is exciting. We're gonna jump in and do a little bit. So Lynn's already gave a great introduction, but just reiterating the fact that we do have Piet on this with us. So as we go through and taste, obviously he can go start to finish with Bols, but he also understands the production technique of a lot of these other Genevers we're going to taste through. So he can really help us answer some of those questions, because what we're doing and what I've kind of been fortunately tasked with is educating trade and bartenders for the most part and aficionados of spirits about what Genever is, where it comes from, its rich history, and the different ways and tastes and flavors and production methods that go into creating this beautiful spirit. So it's been really, really fun to do this, but it's really unique because the EU, in putting this campaign together, brought together 5 different distilleries, 6 different brands that have never worked together before, in hundreds of years have not worked together, all coming together to be like, okay, let's promote our national spirit and do it together. So there's a lot of that goes into the production process of all of this that are trade secrets. So when they're working together, they don't necessarily want to share everything. I kind of use the analogy of like Budweiser and Coors being like, yeah, let's open our doors to each other and show you our marketing secrets. They're not going to do that. So they've been very, very amazing working with each other to create this program. But I want to give a shout out to all of them and to the EU for helping make this possible and making it so you all got amazing cheese plates with 5 amazing Genever that we get to taste through. So cheers to that. Yeah, that's a quick little introduction on that. I was going to jump into a brief history of Genever. And as we jump into this history, I say brief, so I'm going to do it. I joke, it's 500 years and 5 minutes because Genever is one of the oldest spirits in the entire world. And in fact, having Piet on board, I don't know if everyone knows this, but Bols is the oldest spirit brand in the world, which that to me is always mind blowing every time I I say that, I'm just still impressed that it's the oldest one in the world. The oldest one that mankind knows is Bols, and we have Piet here, so that's massive. I'll skip through this a little bit. Piet, don't hesitate to jump in at any point if you're like, I want to talk more on that. But I'm going to give everyone a quick little rundown. Was everybody on this was on the first call before, right? The one we all did together, right? Raise of hands because everyone's on mute. You guys were all on that, right? That's how you got this. It looks like it. I'm scrolling down. I tried to do all screen and now it's not showing everybody. Okay, yeah. So would it be crazy if we unmuted everybody and I asked people to say a little bit as we go through this? See what you guys remember? Is that a crazy thought?
Everyone, let's unmute.
All right, everyone's on mute. So let's obviously, be quiet unless you're talking so it doesn't get all crazy, but 1500 BC. Why is that date important? Does anyone remember why that's important? D, do you remember why that's important? Yes.
First distilled spirits known in history.
About the first time that juniper was talked about. Yes, and juniper distilled spirits, and juniper being the first writing of that being a cure for ailments, which then led into the Romans and Greeks using it for all sorts of stomach ailments. But it was the Egyptians who first wrote about juniper in the 1500s. Yeah, good job. All right. Let's see, can we zoom out of that a little bit so it's not fully zoomed in so I can see yes. But you were right on 1500s being the first time distillation was talked about. That was 1500 BC. So 1500, the other way, was the first time that distilled spirits were talked about. But when they were talked about, it was still talked about recreational. Does anyone remember the first date it was still medicinal? Does anyone remember the first date it was written about being recreational? Super weird nerd fact. 1618. So in 1618 was the first writing of, wow, this spirit we're creating here really makes you feel good. And indulgence might have started to happen. Okay, then we jumped into the 30s year war, 80s year war, Dutch independence, which jumped into, and I will have Piet jump in a little bit here because I didn't go totally into it last time, but you've got the VOC, the Dutch East India Trading Company. Yep. And I've mentioned before, this was important for so many reasons because of the fact that this created so much of our modern day society. It created, the Dutch independence and coming into the VOC, created the first stock market, created the first corporations, created sovereign states, ended the 30s year war. So like all of this really created so much of how we exist and work today. But I had said before, one of the really, really spectacular parts of this is at one point, the majority shareholder of the VOC was Lucas Bols.
Exactly, Zach.
Right. So I talk about, and Piet, tell me if this is kind of in my romantic vision of how this worked. Lucas Bols, as he has his spirit company starting, his liqueurs, he's walking the docks of this company he owns that goes all over the world to all the port cities and just picks out the best herbs and spices and botanicals and gets to play with them and use them and refine them before anybody else. Is that?
That's correct. That's correct. And that's what you said. Bols is maybe I think the oldest distilled spirit company in the world, founded in 1575. So indeed in the Dutch Golden Age period, and Lucas being the main shareholder of the VOC has the advantage that he can choose the best herbs which were imported from the East. And in that time, because I read some very old recipes, and in that time ships were not that good as they are nowadays. So during the trip, there was a lot of bad weather, and many times the goods were very wet due to the seawater coming over into the ship. And then the spices and herbs were of a bad quality because some molds were growing on the herbs and spices, and which got not a nice taste. But in his possibility to make his first choice, he could choose the best herbs which were still available. So that's the funny story of how it all started.
Now, question on
Sorry
this.
to interrupt you, but
oh no, please. This is what we all want to hear. because Bols started as a liqueur company originally.
Exactly.
I think I remember the first 3 flavors. Does anyone want to guess at what they might be? And then Pete, you know what they are, right?
No, I'm not totally aware what the 3 ones, but
From what I
let
heard,
them guess.
yeah, what would be your guess?
Someone want to guess?
Who wants to guess? Let's do Brittany Clark. Brittany, come on, throw a guess out there. First, one of the first flavors of Bols. What would it be?
Something very juniper forward, citrus, botanical.
Well, no, just the liqueurs, not the, because they started with different flavors they were trying to distill so they could keep and use later. So
Let's say lemongrass.
all right. I did hear that one was very close to that, because I heard that one was orange. Orange was one of the first flavors, which would make sense. Orange peels, all the different curacao and triple sec out there, using and keeping that. I heard that. Let's see, Jared, do you have a guess? What was that? Oh, I can't hear you. Just write it large on cardboard backwards so we can see it. I'm just kidding. Linda, what do you think? Do you have it?
I mean, wild guess, maybe like some sort of herb, like mint.
Okay. I hadn't heard mint. That would be a good guess, though. That'd be fun. I mean, I would drink that. One of the ones that I heard, the other ones I heard orange, and I heard cacao was one of the first or second. And then I heard the weirdest one was like a violette of sorts was the third one they came up with. So Pete, I don't know if you don't know, then I don't even remember who told me this.
No, but the makes sense, because orange contains, of course, some ascorbic acid, what we call vitamin C. And in that time, when ships were sailing that far, it took them 9 months or a year to come into the east, and they didn't have fresh foods around, so they needed this vitamin C to prevent all kinds of diseases. So, and that's the funny thing is that the liqueurs, as we know them now, we're drinking them for fun and for pleasure and so on. But in that time, it was considered to be a medicine. So that changes totally from nowadays we're saying, don't drink too much alcohol or whatever. At that time, it was a good thing to drink alcohol because it protects you against all kinds of diseases. And you know that the water quality was very bad. The risk for diseases was very high. So having this curacao drinks, these orange drinks with vitamin C and with alcohol was very good for you.
Yeah, no, that's preventing scurvy. Scurvy was one of the biggest ones that
exactly.
dying up on ships. It took a long time for them to figure that out.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
All right, amazing. Okay, so we're moving on. Let's see, can I see that slide again? Can we all see it and jump in? Is that just me that can't see it?
No.
Oh, there we go. Sweet. Okay, boom. So that all happens. London's gin craze, which leads into what you were saying. It was so healthy that everyone was drinking it all the time. Led into a problem. Then you have, boom, cocktail, the cocktail's heyday comes, American bartending comes. You guys know I always keep this close to me. And by
may I interrupt you once more?
Yes, absolutely.
Bols is the world's oldest distilled spirit brand, based in Amsterdam.
Now, the one of the critical dates is 1820, 1830, because in that time, the first column still was used. So you see the picture at 1400, 15th century. That's a type of a pot still, but in the period of 1820, and I think officially the date is 1828, the first time a column still was used for distillation, which in fact gives you the possibility to make a sort of grain neutral spirit. to distill it higher than 95, 96% to make it absolutely clean. So the critical date, 1820, 1830, is important for Geneva production.
That's actually super important for all sorts of production, spirit production, but especially
Yeah.
Geneva on that one. So
Yeah.
like maybe
Yeah.
we remake this map and throw a still right there in the middle of the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
Right, which leads us into, if we kind of fast forward a little bit, you see, you know, between the two world wars, go 100 years later, and that's when we start to see the end of World War I, this young style Geneva, right? Between World War I, World War II, the younger style Geneva, which we did talk before. We'll do a refresher as we're about to sip into these. You've got the young and the old Geneva are the two main categories. Again, if you guys all remember, old doesn't necessarily mean that it was aged for a certain amount of time. It just has the flavor quality of an older style Geneva, a pre-column still Geneva. So a lot more malt based on it, a lot more real pronounced, bold flavors versus what we can get out of a column still. Correct, Pete?
Yeah. That's correct.
I'm looking
That's
at you.
correct.
Correct me if I misstep here in my.
No. In fact, in Holland, you saw the development of what you call the young style Geneva after World War II, because Dutch consumers, Dutch trend was to go to a more neutral tasting drinks. So a vodka was coming up. And if you look at taste of the so-called young style Geneva, it's quite close to vodka, because the amount of herbs distillate is very low. The amount of the malt spirit is very low. So there's not that much taste in a young style Geneva. And the old style Geneva, later on we made a regulation, and we said that the young style Geneva should have from 1.5% malt spirit to 15% malt spirit. That's a young style Geneva. Above 15% malt spirit is called an old style Geneva. So everything, in fact, above 15% malt spirit is an old style Geneva. And then the higher the malt spirit amount is, the more taste you have, of course. But that will we see later when we go to all the separate Genevers.
Now, if we jump into 100% malt spirit, what would that be?
That's in fact an old style Geneva.
Still old style.
Due to the regulation.
Amazing. And now go ahead.
Yeah, in fact, that's the basic. That's the basic. We think we have a recipe in our product, the Bols Geneva, which goes back to 1820. But we think that before that, the first Geneva Bols made was 1664. And we think in that period from 1664 to 1820, all the malt spirit was used to make a Geneva, because we could not make a grain neutral spirit. We didn't have the equipment for it.
Right.
And so 100% malt spirit is in fact basics what the Geneva was when they started to make Geneva.
Amazing. Now, was it 2008, obviously, when it got its own protected AOC? Is that when they also defined rules for young and old?
Yeah. That's correct. And the AOC said that the production of Geneva is protected. It's limited to Holland, Belgium, a few provinces next to the border in Germany and in France. So close to the most important countries, Holland and Belgium, most important countries for Geneva.
Amazing. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Which is wild to think about, that it wasn't until 2008 that it became a protected region, whereas it's been being made, like you said,
exactly.
1660.
So Geneva was made in a lot of countries in the world, you know. But that's it's part of the history that we lost our position because it was one of the biggest brands in the whole world. You know, in David Wondrich, you all know him, I think. He wrote a book, exactly, And he told us that in the period of 1880, 1890, Geneva was 5 times bigger than gin in the US only. And it was well known in South Africa, in Argentina, in Canada. And by the way, it still is. In Quebec region, there's still a lot of Genever consumption. In Argentina, there's a big consumption of Genever nowadays. So the Genever was all over the world.
That's amazing. Has anyone been to Argentina? Has anyone been to Argentina and had Genever down there? And what else?
I have.
Do you have your Kopstucha here and then your Fernet and Coke over here?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Amazing.
Yeah, but yeah, it's an amazing story. Yeah.
I love that. Let's okay, so what I want to do as we move forward here, let's all maybe do a little Kopstucha together. Does everybody have their little tulip glass? Yes. Oh yes, I love the smiles I'm seeing right now. This makes me so happy.
Yeah.
Now, does anyone have access to a nice little light or dark beer, any kind of beer near them? If you do, you can grab that bottle. We're gonna, as we have Pete here, I'm gonna start my Kopstucha off with Bols, and here we're gonna, as you all know, yeah. As you all know, but I'm gonna do it. We're gonna focus in here on how we pour this the Dutch way. Feel free to judge my meniscus here. I'm getting every penny's worth. Woo!
Exactly.
And
Right
over
well
my
done.
computer. Do not do that at home. Do it away from your computer monitors. So let's see. All right, everyone is pouring. This is good.
Don't judge me. I'm a little ratchet. I poured mine into a White Claw because there's no beer in the house.
I don't think that's ratchet at all.
Okay, the thing is what I just see. If you are in Amsterdam, in a bar in Amsterdam with a very low counter, they fill your glass as you did it, Zach. And if you pick it up, you're spoiling your Geneva. So what the habit is, you will show it to us, Zach.
Linda just did it. Linda just did it without even. All right, so go through it.
Your first nip is slurping. Exactly. And now you can pick up your glass without spoiling it. That's where it comes from.
Oh,
cheers,
Prost, everybody. Cheers. Prost. That is the thing. I always say the Dutch are so creative and work so hard, and they're so ingenuitive that, every little thing. They work hard for their money. They want every cent worth. So no point spilling it all. Fill it to the top. I'll sip it. Then I'll take it. Don't worry about me.
Yeah.
All right. Now that we've got some Genever flowing through us, I know most of us did. This is good. We're going to keep going. I want to jump to I want to start getting into this pairing, this eating some cheese and sipping on some different brands here. I also want to, since we do have Pete here, I want to jump into really getting into the bolts of how Genever's made. So what I'm thinking, if it works for you guys and Pete, it works for you, let's do a quick little taste through with Bobby's. So we'll do something a little light, a little fun. And I just said, since we all just Kopstucha'd and poured, and I think we all poured, did everyone pour Bols? Is that what just happened?
Yeah. I mean, I did.
So, and if we're all drinking out of, our one glass, maybe we should jump straight into Bols. Pete can describe really, I guess, intrinsically how the production process works. And then we can, is that going to mess things up? I mean, that starts with some bold flavor, but at the same time, if you guys we all just poured Bols, then it's in our glass. I don't want to jump to the other ones. Don't want to make you slam this and then jump to the other ones.
Yeah.
It's about enjoying the journey here. All right. Well,
I have Bols.
All right. So we're going to do an audible. We're going to jump to Bols, which is not how we were going to start this. I was going to start with something a little lighter, but we are going to jump into the world's oldest spirit brand here. Again,
All right.
a lot of this information we just said, 1575, 1664, 1800s, the VOC, 1820, the original Bols recipe. I guess let's pause right there. So 1820, Pete, why don't you talk real fast about the original Bols recipe? What exactly, where did that come from? What is it? Is it what's in this right here? What's happening?
Well, the story is that the former owner, but the family, the latest Bols female died in 1818, 1820. And she sold the company to another company, but she said that the name of Lucas Bols should always be in the company. So we will never lose the name of Lucas Bols. And in that time, they start writing down all the recipes. Because before that, before the period of 1820, all the recipes were in the mind or on a sort writing, maybe, we don't know, of the Master Distiller. And there was no written copy. From that time, we have some recipes. And I found the recipe of a Genever in a small, very small booklet, and it dated 1820. And that's why we call this the original 1820 Bols Genever, because we are so sure that, let's say, the product is the same as it was in that time. The difference is, of course, that our processing is much better. We make much more a continuous quality. We control everything. We control the grains on malts, on moisture, on heavy metals, on everything, on GMOs and whatever you can mention. It's controlled. And in that time, it wasn't. You can imagine that nobody was worrying about these things in that time. So, but at the basic processing is that we use the grain, and you saw that we use 3 types of grain: rye, wheat, and corn. Rye, wheat, and corn, and that we use some malt just for the transfer of the starch molecules of the grain into fermentable sugars.
So on
So
this,
we add.
Pete, let me just jump in. So let me make sure we're all clear on this and see if I'm clear. Maybe I have this question for everybody. So the base of this, essentially, with almost every Genever as well, and especially what you guys are doing, it is almost like how we know here, very popular in America, bourbon. It's a whiskey. Starts with an unaged whiskey. Same production process for the most part, right?
In fact, it is. In fact, it is. So we use these malts from barley, the barley malt, what the brewers also use, to transfer starch molecules into fermentable sugars. That is done in 2 steps, because we grind the grains, mix them with water, heat them up to 90 degrees Celsius, add some malt, and parts of the malt, the enzymes in the malt, transfer the starch molecules into pieces of the starch molecule. Temperature is lowering down to 60 degrees, and other enzymes from the same malt are transferring the particles of the starch molecules into glucose molecules. And as you all know, glucose can be fermented. So 3 steps of all the grains all together in 1 fermentation tank, and a yeast is added. Just a standard baker's yeast, nothing special. No special yeast, just the same yeast as the baker used to make his bread.
Now that's a huge difference from what we always hear with the bourbon companies and the whiskey companies. They always are very, very particular about their yeast. Like,
now we have
crazy.
overall yeast. It works perfectly.
Baker's bread yeast. Got it.
So and then the funny thing starts, especially for the Bols production, because if you after 3 days fermentation time, all your sugars are gone. But we as Bols have a 2 days extra fermentation period, because we found out that in these 2 days, the yeast itself is creating some ingredients, some fatty acids and esters, which are very important for the final taste of our malt spirit. So that's, again, a difference between our colleagues, competitors, and the other Genevers which are available in Holland, and the Bols production method. So instead of 3 days fermentation, we have a 5 days fermentation with a higher fatty acid content and a higher esters content. And I know that's maybe too technical, but it's just give you an idea that we are making a very special malt spirit. Well, this malt spirit is distilled in a pot, in a column still once, and then twice in a pot still, ending up at 47% alcohol strength.
Now, are you adding water to bring that down to 45 or to 47? Or are you distilling it?
Now, in the second step, after the column still distillation, we dilute with some water to make it possible to separate high alcoholic components, the fusel oils, better from the tasting givings elements we want in the malt spirit. And the second time, second time in the pot still, we distill until 47%. There are some ideas nowadays in Holland to distill to 70%, but in our opinion, we think starting this, I have to say it in a different way, to distill to 70 degrees alcohol, you're not taking in your distillation the parts which is important for the taste. You mainly have alcohol, and that's not what you should do. You should follow the original way, the original processing, and go to 47% alcohol strength, because that gives you the best taste and the best taste profile. We think that's our choice. So
is it because some of the things you're using, the higher temperature or the higher percentage will yield more of those esters, more of those?
Yeah, but you have advantage if you stop at 70%, because your distillation can stop earlier, saving some money. You can use less of your malt spirit because the alcohol concentration is higher. So there are some advantages, but the huge disadvantage, in our opinion, again, I can't say that enough because it's our choice, is at 47% you have the real taste as it should be. So after this 5 days fermentation, 3-step distillation, we leave the product in a stainless steel tank, not in wood or whatever, but in stainless steel, to get it, we call it marrying. What happens with marrying, I don't know. What I know is that after some while, so let's say 5 to 6 weeks, the taste is in balance. Did you ever taste a whiskey directly from the cask diluted?
I think we've all done that, right? Has everybody done that? We've all pulled it straight out of the barrel, yes.
Yeah, and then the taste is not nice. It's sharp. It's unbalanced. It's not what you have. So that's what we
wanted to get out of that barrel.
Yeah. So I mean, that's what we call marrying. It has to balance taste. After this 6 to 8 weeks, it's ready for use. And ready for use is either you can use the malt spirit as it is in your Genever. You can use it as a base for a herb distillate. And you mix all the herbs, put it all together in a pot still, and distill it. You can make it especially for a distillation with juniper berry, besides all the other herbs, because then you can play a little bit with the amount of juniper and how strong the juniper taste should be, in your opinion. In our product, I think you only have a little hint of juniper.
Yeah,
it's not that strong.
No, it's not.
It's limited. The main taste is coming from the malt spirit,
which is beautiful. I love that balance on it.
We worked a long time on the final taste, because I said to you it was a recipe based on 80-20. but the ratio between the malt spirit, it was about 60%. That was a choice. But we could have a little bit more of the herb distillate or the more of the juniper in the final tasting profile. And amazing enough, we thought that having a little bit more of the herbs in it, it should give us a more complex, nicer, smoother taste. But it was not so. Yeah, just adding more of these herbs, it got a little bit sharper, a little bit more unbalanced. So that's why we had a limited amount of this botanical distillate in it. And a little bit, and just a hint of juniper, because we don't want to be a gin, we want to be a Genever.
Now,
a basic original Genever.
Now, on that note, just for everyone to write down again, I know I discussed this last time, but one of the big differences, and Pete just said that, between gin and Genever is, aside from the malt base, which is probably the largest, is juniper doesn't have to be the heaviest weighted botanical. You can just, add a berry or two of juniper with another herbaceous botanical blend with that malt base and still be a Genever. And that's one of the big things you'll find in the different styles of Genever as well, is a lot of them are not over prominently juniper, which is a beautiful thing. I mean, right here, this one, Bols is not. Bols is not your London dry style. I mean, even coming in at 42%, which is, higher than we're normally used to at our 40% American level here. It still doesn't come across as that, London dry, high alcohol, high juniper, real kind of sharp flavor. This is very rounded and sweetened from obviously all the malt, hints of sugar, of course, and a botanical mash blend that is not just juniper. I mean, Pete, you've done a phenomenal job with this. I'm going to say it a million times on this Zoom.
Thank you, Zach.
Now, did everybody? I didn't guide you on this, but I assume you might have already started because I'm watching everybody eat, and I'm just curious. I have a pairing that Pete and I thought is probably the best with this one, because he's got a age-old statement of how to eat cheese and drink Genever correctly, which obviously comes down through the generations. But what did you guys just go for? What cheeses? What are we loving with this right now, off the cusp?
I tried it with the blue cheese and I liked it. I felt like the Genever sharpened the cheese. And then the cheese, I felt like in the beginning when I tasted the Genever, it had a lot of that maltiness that you were speaking about. But then after the cheese, I detected the coriander. So it brought out more of the spice. But I would really like to try the Bols with goat cheese.
And you could do a goat blue cheese, because blue cheese can be made with goat's milk.
Yeah.
So you'd get the best of both worlds if we did that one. Maybe the next tasting I'll do that. That's actually what we did. In fact, this particular blue cheese, as you all see it, it's in front of you, St. Pete's.
Yeah.
They spelt theirs incorrectly, obviously. It's not P-I-E-T as it should be, but beautiful blue cheese. Which, on that blue cheese, fun thing, I've been jumping a little bit into the cheese world. I'm getting a little more educated, training after training, but the mold that creates this blue cheese is, if I remember it correctly, it's penicillium, which is the same genus, same family as penicillin, which is a fun little fact there. Obviously, we know how beneficial penicillin can be to our health. So I think eating blue cheese and drinking Genever obviously is the way to stay healthy.
That's okay. And Zach, maybe I can contribute a little bit. If you taste the Bols Genever, you will see that in the aftertaste, you have a sort of tickle on the top of your tongue. You feel it. It gives you a little bit of salty feeling. So try, when you ever have the chance, try a Bols Genever with an oyster, and we do it in Holland, but I don't know if you know the herring, the raw herring. You know it?
Yes.
No?
Yep. Chandler, yes.
Yeah, we have a habit in Holland that in the period of June, The fresh herring is coming in from the North Sea, and it's a raw herring and raw fish, and they clean it and put some onions on it, and then with a glass of Genever is a perfect combination.
Oh.
But oysters also work. So for the guys among you who love oysters, try a bold Genever with it.
Don't ask me twice. Yes, 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 and yes, more yes.
All right.
Do we have any more? Do we want to go deeper into does anyone have any questions so far on the distillation methods, on the mash bill? I mean, we've got the man here himself, so.
I have a more generalized question, like as far as the young Genevers versus the old. I know the young it's just a newer style, but like how common is it? Because I haven't come across it very often. And how old of a style does that kind of coincide with when vodka started, getting super popular?
Well, the young style Genever is still the biggest Genever in Holland and Belgium at the moment. We see a development that people are going to more taste. That's what I can say as a master distiller. I'm not a commercial guy, so I can tell you how it is. And I see that people are looking for more and more taste. But as I said, at the moment, young style Genever is still the biggest variant. And they use it, if you use a vodka, they use the young style Genever instead of the vodka. Having a Coke with Genever or whatever mix you can imagine of. So it's a replacer of vodka.
Interesting. I mean,
And the taste, and again, the taste is quite close to vodka. Because there's not that much juniper, there's not that much botanicals, and not that much malt spirit in it. So the main ingredient is grain neutral spirit.
So kind of to fully answer that, I guess the question is yes. And a lot of it was, the post World War I, World War II, right when young Genever was kind of created, that was also, we started to enter the period of vodka rules the world. The gin kind of was coming up. Vodka then did this. Gin, as we know it, it was Genever and gin just stopped. Vodka raised. I always reference the one of the most infamous marketing campaigns ever. It'll leave you breathless. Exactly. Yes, Smirnoff. So the young style, of course, with the younger generations coming up all over the world, Netherlands as well, really took more to at the time, the flavorless, tasteless.
Exactly.
For the recreational use, very odd, less than medicinal. I don't understand what happened there.
I always wonder why people make a choice for a product, with only the alcohol taste. but that's okay.
Well, so
that's my way of looking at it.
On that, maybe should we, Pete, do you have any more you want to add to this? And of course, we can keep adding to Bols throughout the conversation.
We can talk another day about it. But
I was going to say another 100 years.
Let's go to our colleagues.
Okay, let's jump to a young Genever here. So we're going to jump to Bobby's. This is the bottle. If obviously you guys have the samples there, and you're going to get to try something which Bobby's is a really good, exceptional example of a young Genever because they still carried enough flavor through, in my opinion, to hit the palate of the gin drinkers. This is, I've said before, I'm going to say again, Genever to me, if someone doesn't know, and they think Genever, predecessor of modern day gin, London dry style gin, boom, throw it on the gin shelf. Normally, I don't think so. Most of the Genever that I drink is more in the old style, like what I go to is in the older style. So I almost think that belongs closer on the whiskey shelf, if not kind of permanently with some of those 100% ones that have beautiful botanical infusions. This sits on the gin shelf. The Bobby's Genever here is very much closer to what we would accept as gin. So let's, without further ado, pour some of this and then I'll talk through what we're going to taste this with. We're gonna taste this with the Toma cheese. Toma in Italian means wheel of cheese, and this is a semi-firm cow's cheese, and I believe it's aged for 90 days. I don't know if it said that on here, but I believe it is. Yeah, it's 90-day aged. So that's the cheese I believe we're gonna do with this. Also, did you guys get in the second box the Comté that came? Comté is a beautiful French, aged anywhere between like 8 to 12 months. Yeah, Comté to me is, in my opinion, if you're drinking any distilled spirit, Comté can pair with that. It's light enough, easy enough, great texture. You can just kind of munch Comté with everything. So Comté could be a good second for the bobbies right now, and pretty much for anything. But we'll do the Tome on this one, and we'll pour a little bobbies ourselves. And I hope after this, everybody kind of wrote off most of their day, or just they're doing the things they can do with a big smile, a little buzzing smile on their face. Aaron, you're nodding. Yep. I love it. Jay, yes. Jay,
Are we pouring this all the way to the top?
I don't know what your tolerance is, and I don't know what you're doing later today. I'm gonna now start doing little half marks. This is 1.5 ounces filled to the top, and that's like to the top.
Okay.
So I'm gonna do little half ounces from here on. I'm gonna make sure I eat plenty of cheese, and obviously I've been practicing for this, so my tolerance is up. And I'm gonna say again, Jay, your table from this angle looks like you're sitting at like a 20-foot master table there, with somebody sitting at the head of the table. I love it. All right, so here's Bobby's. This is, so we're talking about the least amount of, or the lesser amount, the less than 15% of malt spirit. Bobby's has 4% malt spirit in it. So really low on the malt spirit. I'm gonna now let all of us taste it if you haven't already, and then I'll talk through it with you. Delightful. Super delightful. Now this is 38%. So of course, sipping this is a lot easier too. It's interesting how much that 2%, or in this case, going 4% from 42 to 38 really does make a difference in approachability of just sipping and neat. You're like, whoa, what's this missing? Not missing anything. We just started really strong. What do you guys think so far?
It's good. It almost tastes like an Old Tom.
Almost like an Old Tom. Okay. I could absolutely see that with the way it's sweetened as well.
Yeah.
There is a limit on the sweetness of the young and the new. They can only add 10 grams of sugar per liter. So this is under the 10 grams, but yes, obviously there is sweetness added to this. Which is a good.
Smacked me in the face with fruit and grapefruit, especially. I wasn't expecting it to be that fruity.
So here's what I find really interesting, and I'd love to have Pete talk on this as soon as I do. One big differentiation points that I see in between my tasting of Genever and gin all the time, which is not written anywhere, but it's a lack of citrus notes. And I really feel like most Genever, really citrus is really pushed down, if not added at all. Whereas Bobby's, I feel like that plays up with the lemongrass really explodes that more citrus notes that I'm not normally used to when drinking Genever. Pete, is that
Now, but Zach, you already said by the introduction of Bobby's that you place Bobby's in the gin, more or less in the gin category, and that's a typical difference between gin and Genever, because if you look at the recipe of the, let's say, if you look at the mix of herbs, imagine that you have the same mix for a gin and for a Genever. Then you will see that the amount of juniper berries in the gin recipe is 10 times higher than in the recipe for Genever. You will also find a lot of lemon peels, and you will have much more coriander in the gin recipe. So, having said that, a gin is as predominant in this juniper, coriander, lemon peel character. You can't drink a gin straight. I don't know anyone who drinks gin straight. They all drink it mixed with tonic, because it's too strong in these predominant taste elements. And if you look at the bobbies, they have a lot of juniper in it, and already you said it yourself. It has a type of gin, and that's how you can differentiate in the Geneva category, using all kinds of different ratios of juniper and herbs to make a typical drink. And the malt spirit is very low; it's 4%, so that's very limited.
It's very true. And, you know, truthfully, I do know, it's funny you said that. Obviously, these crazy Americans, I know a handful of crazy friends that drink gin, London Dry, room temp, always serve it neat, just sip on it. And I love it. It makes me very happy. And I think
Really, they drink it neat?
They do. And I also think it's very odd. It's very odd they do that. And I love that they do that. Johnny and Nick are two of the ones that are always, give me that gin, neat, boom, just sip on it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. But what I love is I love the 4% added to the bobbies, because it does add a little softness, a little roundness, and a little extra body through the whole thing, which to me makes this when I do most of the tastings, my Genever trainings, a lot of people really go to this pretty quickly and love it because of the fact that they're so familiar with London Dry style gins here. And then all of a sudden this is a great alternative or something new in that kind of towards that family. So really exciting, really good. Sebastian, the kind of wrapping it up on this one, Sebastian, what he did here is he found his grandfather's recipe, and his grandfather was from Indonesia, moved to the Netherlands and fell in love with Genever. And he wanted to create a gin from his home country with those home flavors, and because he's drinking all these Genevers with all these botanicals and spices, he wanted to do the same thing, make a gin now he's in there with all his home flavors and spices as kind of a recuerdo, a memory of home, and with all those flavors that he loves so much. But at the same time, he was falling in love with Genever. So he ended up creating both. And yeah, Sebastian did this. He launched a dry gin, which was a dry gin with those same botanicals. And then he launched the Genever as well. You can't get the dry gin in America anymore. At least I have not been able to find it anymore. You used to be able to. Fortunately enough, you can still get this. And this is, he just launched this in 2017. So still very, very new, beautiful alternative to somebody who wants to try a new gin to be able to open their floodgates into Genever. This is a great one to start to do that. So really exciting. And out of all the Genevers that at least, I talk about so often, this one plays so much more to the young, lighter style that it can be used in the cocktails, any cocktails that would require something, potentially would take a London Dry, but maybe could use a little less alcohol in it. This is a perfect substitute. So that's Bobby's. All right, my glass is empty, so we're moving on. Let's see, next on my list. Fruta. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Genever from Miriam. And I've, fortunately enough, in the last couple of years of all this education, I've got to spend time having Kopstootjes with Piet and having Kopstootjes with Miriam. Two of my favorite humans in the world who just are so knowledgeable, can just go down rabbit holes and then yet translate that into layman's terms so I can understand it. We're going to drink a little Ruta here. So let's all, hold on, there's a small drop, had to get that out. All right, let's pour this. Everybody have their Rutas there? Yes. Yes. And by the way, what a great way to start a morning, huh? Little cheese, little Genever, some conversation with new friends. Guys, we should do this every week. So good. Okay. Ruta. Let's see, do we have the slide? I don't necessarily need the slide. The pairing, I was going to pair this with, what do I have over here? Because I tasted through. This Gold Bellavitano. I totally pronounced that incorrectly. Also, semi-hard cow's milk. Excuse me. This is an American-made cheese, made from Wisconsin. So you hear a lot about Wisconsin cheeses. The reason I picked this one is because it has a bit of a nuttiness to it. And that nuttiness, I can't eat that cheese and not just jump to Ruta, because Ruta does have toasted hazelnuts and walnuts in it, which are very prominent and beautiful and very unique because of the fact that it does that. And so I had to put those two together, and I think those are a great pairing. But again, I've got this affinity towards Comté, so throw Comté in everything as well. And obviously I know you're all doing this. I'm sure you're trying every cheese with it as well, because I know I do that even when I make a pairing. I'm like, no, what about this? Yeah, no, again, it's still my favorite, but I'm gonna try them all. So yeah, get a good bite, nice little sip. Rinse it around, and then we're gonna go to town on this one. All right, so does everyone remember in specific detail everything Pete said about the distillation process and how it's made? Because I know in the last call I did a bit about this on Ruta as well, because I sat with Miriam and had her explain that process before. So I won't go too deep into it again, but I'll give you a reminder of how it goes. So when she makes this, very similar to how Pete said, opens up the whole world of how Genever as a category is one of the most complicated, intense things to make, which is something in my teaching of Genever took me a while to wrap my head around. I might have said this one before as well, but it was something where I kept hearing how it was made from certain distillers and then not being able to connect the dots. And I was like, wait, I don't know why I'm not understanding this. And then it took me stepping out to realize, oh my gosh, there's so many ways to make this. It's not the same. They're all making it very different styles, that then I was able to really understand how that process works. So that leads us into, and maybe Pete, you can speak a few words on this, where we talk about there's the malt distillers and there's botanical distillers. Is that very much a thing that normally you would say is a Belgian and a Netherlands style thing because of the history of where they're both located? Or do you not find that to be, I mean, there is malt distillers and botanical distillers, right? Is that kind of how that splits?
That's a very good question, Zach. But yeah, let me tell you it in this way.
Sorry to overload you there.
Not everybody is able to make a malt spirit, because you need quite some equipment to make a good malt spirit.
Right.
Everybody can make a botanical distillate because everybody has a pot still. So there are some distillers in, as well as in Holland as in Belgium. If you call them botanical distillers, you're right, and they're buying the basic of the malt spirit at someone else.
Right. Now,
so that's correct. That's correct what you say.
Now I had heard too that it was a very high percentage. I don't recall off the top of my head, but it was like 80% of most of the malt spirit used in all Genever comes from Belgium. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. That's
okay.
Correct. Yeah.
So there is the malt distillers, botanical distillers, and a lot of Belgium makes this malt, the malt distillate that they sell to a lot of distillers out of the Netherlands that then put their touch on it. So
exactly. Yeah, that's correct.
So Ruta, which I put back up here, is very much one of these. They do not make their own malt spirit. They obviously determine what kind of malt spirit they want, what ratios, and they work with malt distillers to create that for them. And then they do that and they ship it to them. So again, what she does here is a very complicated process, very much as, you know, Pete was discussing all of the nuances that go into Bols. Is she does 3 distillates and 2 macerates. So she does a distillate that is a juniper, angelica, coriander, and I think coriander seed maybe, that she does. She does the one, I actually wrote one of it down. Yeah, the hazelnut and walnut, but she added the celery seed and mace. Yes, mace was the other one that she added on that. So she makes that, this one. Then she does one that's all, what'd she say? She said it was all seasonal fruit. So whatever those seasonal berries are that come in, she uses that, makes that distillate. Then she makes 2 macerates that take weeks to make, that she does, and I forget which they're, one, licorice and carob that she does, makes all of those, and they take different times to do, right? So this one distills for X amount of time at temperature and this and this, and then these macerate for certain weeks, blends them all together, puts all of those together, then adds more malt spirit, some neutral grain spirit, and then water to bring to proof, which this one leads at also 35%. Not also, we did 42, 38, 35. So we're actually going reverse. You know, we hit you with something beautiful and full bodied and bam, and now we're kind of taking it back and making it a little more approachable, then we'll bring it back up again. But so that's everything that goes into the production process of her creating this. And that's, you know, again, talking about, it's just good going back to back from this, from what Pete just said with Bols to then what Miriam does with Ruta, because a lot of similarities in how they do multiple distillates, but also just shows how different and wide ranging all of this can be. And that is, you know, if anything, I always try and like stamp that on all bartenders. I know I said it before, I'll say it again. It's just so much versatility with Genever that you really do need to dive into the world and start tasting a bunch of them to find out, you know, your passion's there. I know it because we're all here right now. But once you dive in more, it's like the rabbit hole. We're going to keep chasing the rabbit down this hole, and I'm totally fine to be in Alice in Wonderland for the rest of my life drinking Genever.
Yeah, but what you're telling us is exactly proving that Genever is such a very complex product to make. So you can make a lot of choices. You can have some macerates, you can use distillates, you can use, well, whatever you want, walnuts, celery, as Miriam did. So it proves the complexity of the Genever.
Yes, yes. Oh yeah, she does have a celery Ruta, which is a very fun Genever to use, and actually in a Bloody Mary is phenomenal.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
She plays with a bunch, and I know that Pete does as well. I mean, they spend a lot of time collecting a bunch of different things and playing with a bunch of different herbs and botanicals and spices and coming up with. The Dutch are very inventive. They're creative. They've created so much of the world today, and it doesn't stop.
Thank you, Zach.
Oh man, I'm a huge fan. Obviously, that's why I do this. Do you guys have any questions? Oh, so on this, the last thing I want to say on that is this one is 40% malt spirit. So we went from 60% with the Bols to down to 4%, and now back up to 40. So still significantly less than what the Bols has, but significantly more than what Bobby's has, and just tasting that different balance. I mean, we just hit 3 super unique Genevers all in a row. How are you guys feeling? How's everything tasting? We are a quiet bunch for how much we're drinking.
It's really good.
Thank you.
The Comte like clear like cleanses the palate a whole lot too.
Wait, what'd you say?
I said it's really good, and the Comte like cleanses the palate a whole lot.
Ah, yes, good. Yeah, the Comte. I think Comte is a really good choice for that one as well.
I like the Angelica and whatever the mystery fruits are in this Genever. For some reason, I keep getting bubblegum, and I mean that in a really good way. But that's kind of like that sweetness from the Angelica, and then that indistinguishable fruit flavor is just, I just keep thinking bubblegum. I was trying to pull it apart and I just can't. It's just like a really high-end bubblegum.
I love, hey, I love bubblegum, so yes. I mean, yeah, I'm trying to get bubblegum now. I just want to know what bubblegum you grew up chewing, because
I might have had too much Genever. I don't know.
I mean, that might be it. All right.
Is there a general, I know the percentage of malt can vary up to 100%, but is there a general range that they tend to kind of be like in a, I don't know, 40 to 60% kind of thing, or?
From what I've seen, I have not. Pete, is there living over there? Do you see something that's your general range?
Well, look, if you look at the average of all Genevers, again, we'll be talking about the young style with Bobby's is, and the old style with Old Simon is. And as I said to you, the young style can have maximum 15% of this malt spirit. Mm-hmm. Bobby's have 4. And for a young style Genevers, 4% is a little bit higher than the average. The average for young style Genever in the malt spirit ratio is about 2.5%. for the old style Genevers, you have about 23-24% as an average malt spirit. And everything above that is nowadays considered as more speciality. It's more an exceptional Genever. Let's say a high quality Genever, a premium Genever. Because people think the higher the malt spirit amount, the better Genever is, the more original the Genever is. Does that explain a little bit your question?
Absolutely. That completely answers my question.
Okay, okay.
That's a good question. Thank you. And again, everybody, do not hesitate to ask questions while we do this. That's what we're all here for. Let's learn and let's ask. And especially with a category like Genever, there are a lot of questions that we can ask because it is a very complicated spirit. I mean, I'm 2 years into doing this and I'm still learning every time I have a conversation. So very exciting. De Borgen. De Borgen. That's where we're jumping to right now. Beautiful, beautiful bottle. You guys all see this? I know we didn't ship full bottles to everybody. I'm sorry about that. But this is the Hoegaardt Distillery. This is the Northern Netherlands. Pour a little half glass again here. Now, as you pour it, do you see the color on that is a rich, beautiful, almost hay color. You guys seeing that? Actually, hold up your glasses. Can you all hold your glasses? I haven't seen which ones you all got. Does that look larger than mine or is that the same size? Same size. Looks a little bigger, right? Huh.
I think the tulip is a little less flared.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
Flared wider.
Ah.
A little bit colored.
Yeah, I love you're taking a photo of the screen. It was a selfie.
No, I was showing you an iPhone for scale so you could compare the size.
So it takes this many Genevers for us to ask whose is bigger. Is that what
Oh, now everyone's waking up. This is good. This is real good.
Yeah. Need some time.
Yes, took a little time. Okay, so I'm gonna pair this one. I'm gonna pair the De Borgen with the aged cheddar. It should be a 4-year-old aged cheddar and your second shipment of cheese because we love you so much. We sent you 2 cheeses. Amazing. But again, feel free to jump through on everything. But the reason I went with the aged cheddar and the 4-year age is because of there is a grading process that goes through cheddar, and usually it's aged a year, and the more it gets aged, the more it gets kind of graded. But it will get this bold, almost like tangy hay brown butter, almost airs to nutty, but not quite to me. And I think this with just visually that kind of light hay colored look and the 17-year aged statement on this, which is not all of it, we'll get into that, pairs really nicely with that. So, by the way, I had a very difficult time choosing what cheeses to do. And then before the call, they did this. So exactly, well, what cheese with what Genever? I'm like, I was just going to go with it as we went because it's tough to pick. But see if I'm still right on this one. I'm not mad at that pairing. So the De Borgen, what's real interesting on this one and real fun, again, we went to 40% alcohol in this. So again, different alcohol percentage than everything else. And only 22% of the malt base. So again, just changing the two, I guess, precursors of flavor so much, they get a super unique flavor. But this, where it says here, it says we've got obviously this blend of 17-year age and unaged malt spirit. When I was talking to Sandra on this one, it is, if I'm correct on this from what I remember, this is a third, basically he did a third of everything on this one. So it's a third wheat, third rye, third corn, all put together. So the mash bill is a third, third, and third. And the 17-year aged and unaged malt spirit, I believe it's a third of this whole mash bill is the 17-year aged unspirit, which would explain the color a lot as well, because it does have significant amount of color, but not too much if the rest is an unaged. Now, what are you guys thinking on this? Just on the nose, on the taste, on the.
Smells like green apples to me.
Green apples. Okay. Yep.
Some grassy notes.
I definitely get that as well.
Getting a lot of butterscotch.
100% get some of that sweetness. Now this is going to come in at the older style. So those added sugars, I believe, are going to bring out more of that flavor that's happening with that 17-year aged malt distillate, because that's going to be really packed full of flavor, carry some innate sweetness to it from the, you know, vanillins and the wood and everything coming through, and then throw a little sugar on that, it's going to come out. So yeah, butterscotch makes a lot of sense in that.
Question, you know why they use a 17-year-old aged spirit in
It's the legal age of marriage in, no, I'm just kidding. Terrible joke. I actually don't know why they use 17 age. I assume it's kind of with everybody, with every kind of master distiller has their own taste profile they're looking for. And this is probably that year age is probably what gave.
Also, the cost of that would be like super prohibitive, no? Like unless they have, like, for some weird geographical reason, a really low evaporation rate, like a low angel share every year.
Well, you know, there's obviously something to do with a little bit of marketing as well, that we all tend to go towards older age spirits. So when you see a beautiful gold bottle that says 17-year age malt spirit, I'm curious. I'm probably going to pick it up and give it a whirl. Pete, do you know why? Is there 17-year?
No, the only reason I can think of is that they want to have some extra taste in it, because this wood maturation, as you all know, gives you something special in your taste, even more complexity than what you normally can reach with your botanicals. So I think that's the reason why they especially made the choice for 17 years and not for 15 or 12 or 13 or whatever. What? I don't know. I can't answer that question.
That makes two of us.
Yeah.
But this is the joke I tried to make. Let's see if it still works. Can you hear the song in the background? Of course I hit the live version. All right, I tried to play the Beatles. She was just 17.
Okay.
That was where my joke was going.
Yeah.
So I need some more Genever and I'll pick it up.
But I think, Zach, it's what you said, maybe a marketing tool, because it sounds very nice, of course, to say that part of your product has been matured for 17 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, and it does, it says a lot to me. It probably says a lot to you guys too, because 17 years, like you said, it's a lot of angel share foregone.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But comes up with a beautiful, beautiful flavor. Now, I do have a question on this too, because De Borgen does have hops in it as well. And I know that you play with hops as well, correct?
Yeah.
Are you macerating hops? Are you distilling hops? How are you utilizing hops?
Now we're distilling hops.
You're distilling it.
Yeah, we don't macerate it because we're just distilling it, and we especially look for the alcohol vapors, extracting the flavors from the hop.
Okay.
So we put the botanicals a little bit above the liquid level in the pot still. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so it's not soaked into the liquid, but it's extracted. In fact, the alcohol vapors are coming through the botanicals and extracting the aromas.
So it's basically like the basket that's hung above. So
you can imagine. Yeah, that's a good example. Yeah.
So I've got to assume they're doing the same, which would add to some of those aromatic notes. That's coming out.
But that's the way, again, what you said, each master distiller has his own opinion. We use some macerates. Borgen use some mature products. So everybody looks for his own speciality.
I love that. Okay.
And give the product something extra.
Amazing. All right, what do you guys think, all in all?
I actually have a question.
Go for it.
So the De Borgen, however you say that.
I say it incorrectly. Pete says it correctly. Listen to him.
De Borgen.
De
De
Borgen.
Borgen.
De Borgen.
Okay, so the De Borgen Genever is the first one in the lineup that's had any color to it, and I know this was in the like actual master class, but could you maybe give us just a little refresher? Is it naturally from the barrel? Is it added? Do you know?
Pete, I'd love you to answer this one because it was on the masterclass. I was talking about watching you do a training where you had mentioned the use of caramel coloring to keep a consistent flow for the product. So
Exactly.
it's not always added, but sometimes added. So I'd love for you to speak to that one.
Yeah, we also mature our Genever, our Bols Genever. We call it barrel aged. It's also available in the US, by the way.
Actually, Linda was drinking it, I believe. Linda, was that you that had the barrel aged bowls? I was watching all the cameras to see that. Bam! I was right. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's the barrel aged. It's matured for 2 years in Limousin oak. We use Limousin oak, French oak, and what you said is true. We look at the color when it comes from the barrel, and sometimes when part of the barrels are a little bit older, then your color is a little bit less, and then sometimes we have to add some caramel. But if we don't have to because of the color, we don't do it. So it's not a standard procedure. It's just when we need it to have a continuous color, because we think it should be disappointing if when you open a new bottle, you see a different color. So that's the reason why.
Does that answer the question there?
That was fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
Which I did not know that was a thing until I heard you say it, which makes so much sense because I've always wondered that with a lot of products, because especially first run, second run, third use, fourth use barrels, the aging time is very different. And of course, because you need, more time to get that flavor back, of course it's going to affect the color. And so hearing you say that made a lot of sense and opened up to a lot of uses that we probably all see through many, many spirits, because you can add coloring like to tequila. It's one of the few things that can be added to it as well. So you start to look at it like, okay, that makes a lot more sense. Because I'd be confused too if I bought a bottle and one was clear and one was dark. I'm like, wait, what's wrong with one of these?
Exactly. So we in Bols we have how you say, a sort of legendary words. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but it said it's temper idem. And temper idem means always the same.
Say it one more time.
Temper idem.
Temper idem.
So we always wanted the same. So if we wanted to make a liqueur, let's say that we have to make triple sec, we use some orange peels to distill with, and in the next season you have different orange peels. And then we have to look for a new processing, distill it a little bit longer or shorter, or at a lower temperature, or whatever, to reach the same taste. Because we want our triple sec to taste always the same. It's not with a wine. If you guys buy a bottle of wine, you totally accept that the wine from, let's say, 2017 has a different taste from the wine from 2019. But if you buy a bottle of Bols triple sec, you expect to have the same taste.
It's very true.
And that's our problem. But we want to make the same product each time. And that's also with the mature Genever. So that's why we add a little bit of caramel when needed.
Amazing.
I have a quick question for Pete. I just poured myself a little nip of the aged.
Very good.
Everyone's got the aged. I love this.
While you were talking about it, and I just had a quick question about it while I have you, because I'll never get a chance to ask you again. Specifically about adding caramel coloring. I know it's proprietary and you don't have to tell me, but how much of it falls under the 10 grams per liter that you're allowed to?
Oh, it's quite less.
Does it not fall under dosage at all?
Well, once you get the old style, you can go up to 20 grams.
No,
Okay.
but the caramel is less than, even less than 1 gram liter.
Beautiful.
So it's only a hint, just a little bit, because when it comes from the wood, it also has a color.
Of
The only
course.
thing is that we want to have it the same color. So we have you add just a droplet of caramel liquid.
Of course.
So it's less than a gram.
Thank you.
Let me, Zach, if you allow me, just a little bit about how we mature our Genever. We buy new oak bottles in France from Limousin wood, and our Genever is in the first filling. We leave it only there for 6 to 8 weeks. Reason why is that you extract some tannins from the wood, and you all know that tannins have a bitter taste. And during the maturation time, the tannins doesn't disappear. So if you leave your product too long on new barrels, then you have so much bitterness in your taste that you can't remove it afterwards. And in that period of being on a new cask, also the brown color is the strongest. So after the 6 to 8 weeks, we remove the liquid to older barrels, and older barrels in our situation are always older than 8 years old. But the brown color is already there. But during maturation time, differs a little bit per barrel. Again, that's the reason why we have a droplet of a caramel solution, just to have the same taste, the same color, sorry.
That's an amazing
Is that
answer.
clear?
So clear.
Yeah, all right, okay.
Oh, where'd Dee go? You lost it. No, there she is. Did that answer it? Yes, amazing.
All right, okay.
Good. And I didn't say that earlier, but they do use, and Pete just said it, new limousine casks, barrels, which not everybody's doing that. Some Genevers are using old bourbon barrels. Some are using, they're going from everywhere. So new limousine is really, a beautiful touch that adds some of the quality on that as it's aged for a year in those. So that's really an important note to do. So thank you for bringing that back up, Pete. Thank you. Okay, let's jump to this guy. Let's jump to Notaris, which this one's gonna hit us. This is kind of, I know bartenders, I know enthusiasts, I know us, we tend to love very malty, very flavorful, very pronounced spirits. This one really does it. It'll knock your socks off for a quick second. This is the Bartender's Choice Rome. So pour that. Now we're talking color. You can definitely see the color in this one. And that is because of the fact that, and I believe it says it right in the front, it does not, but it is aged. There's some 10 and 15-year-old malt spirit blended together in this.
Yeah.
Now, has anybody been to the Jerry Thomas project in Rome, in Italy? I have not either. I really want to go there because I'm impressed that they were able to make this partnership happen. I've heard a lot of great things, but it is apparently a bar in Rome owned by a couple bartenders, and they worked with the Herman Janssen distillery, which also same distillery that makes Bobby's. So this distillery makes this and makes this. These two couldn't be more different. So you're talking about yin and yang here coming out of the same place, which is amazing. I mean, this distillery has so much great ability to do that. And then when I talk about the versatility of Genever to begin with, showing these two and knowing they come from the same distillery that has, it's world renowned and is winning awards, like distilling awards, it's really impressive to see the versatility of everybody involved in the process. So jumping on here, we're talking color. I know we were just talking about that with the Borden. Looking at this color, you're going to see a deeper, richer, darker hay colored, almost, I don't know what color would you call that? What color would you guys call this? I'm actually asking because I'm slightly colorblind. So
Gold.
Golden. God, I love gold. Yes, beautiful color. Yeah, it's a golden. It's like a strong hay / golden.
Like a light honey color, I think.
Yes. Now, Linda just jumped straight in. I should have warned you. It's 47% alcohol. So this one's going to hit you with a big bang up front. We jump back on the pairing. So if you're going to go back and forth as we chat through this, we went back to the same thing. Pete's blue. We went back to the blue because it's the most full flavored, in your face cheese on the sample platter. So we're going to pair that with what we have here with this 10-year, 15-year, some unaged rye. So that's where all that spice is going to come from. And then coming in at 47%, you're going to get a lot in this little glass. So Prost.
Proost.
I need my cup. Oh, this is a perfect cup, Stucha. A nice dark beer with 100% malted Genever.
Yeah, it is.
Perfect. It's lunchtime too. It's right after noon. This is great. I'm on to lunch. Breakfast was a little a little bowls and blue cheese, and now we're doing, oh, hilarious. Yes. What are we thinking? How are we feeling about this? Christina, what are your thoughts?
I think this one surprised me. On the nose, I got a lot of hay. The aroma was really dry, but when I tasted it, I definitely got that sweetness, almost of a cocoa sweetness to it.
For sure. And I don't know, this is one of the brands that I've not been able to gather a ton of information on how their blending and mastering distilling process goes, other than the fact that I know it's 10 and 50-year unaged rye all blended together, which I've also heard that it's a third 10-year, third and 15, third unaged rye. I don't know if that's right. Pete, do you know any intricacies of this?
I'm not 100% sure, Zach, but I thought it was about 50-50.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 50 of 10 and 15 and 50 of unaged?
Yeah. I mean, in the ratio of aged, the aged part, the old part.
That might be the case.
Yeah, and you see why it's 47, why it's 40% alcohol strength, because they use the original strength of the malt spirit.
Which is what you were saying earlier, right?
And that's what I said earlier.
Yeah.
So they are my style of Geneva producers.
Wait, now, do you also have a hidden bottle in your house too, just to compare every once in a while?
Of course, I got a bottle from the owner of the distillery.
Of course you did. I think he's
I
the
know
only
him
one
very well, you know.
Say that.
Sorry, Jack.
I'm just laughing. Of course, the owner of the company sent you one. Of course he did.
Yeah. But I know him very well, so he's a very nice guy.
That is something that I find very impressive with everybody, with all of you guys working together to bring this to light and allowing us to taste through all this. The fact that you don't work together hand in hand and trade, your trade secrets together. You are all very, very polite and respectful of each other. And it seems like have some true friendships between each other as well, which is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I know Mirjam, of course, very well. I know Ad van der Lee, who is the master distiller of Herman Janssen, very well. I know the guy from Hooghout, where they made Borgen. So, and I know even the master distiller of Smeets in Belgium.
Oh, wow.
So I know them all.
I think maybe everybody, that's our next master class. We'll bring all of the masters together. Pete will bring them together, and then we can just go to town. We'll make this about 4 to 7 hours, a full day. Yeah. We'll do a little nap time in between. Just keep your camera on. Just nap. Do we have any questions on this? What do you guys think with the cheese pairing? Obviously, with the blue cheese makes sense with this one, right? Loaded with flavor. And you ate all your Comté already? I'm sure you did.
I think the Genever itself has a lot going on. It smells very like doughy, biscuity, but has like really white peppery kind of taste to it.
I like doughy. Doughy's a fun word for this.
I don't know where everybody else is from, but I live in Texas, and this just really makes me want to have a crawfish boil. Like there's something about the notes, the spice that's in it, and then you could do it with, I can't pronounce the cool Slurpee thing that we did at the beginning.
Kopstucha.
It comes to
you can do that out of the crawfish head.
Yes. Yeah. Beer on the side. I think it'd be a great pairing.
I really love the the sweet notes of this. Like when I first smelled it, it reminded me of like banana nut bread. And so I think that would be a really great pairing, is to actually have this with some sort of like baked bread, like pastry type thing, treat it almost like a dessert.
I love that, because Jared, that was you that just said doughy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So banana nut bread, doughy. Yeah, a lot of commonality with that flavor for sure. Wait, what do we got going there? Jay, what are you showing to the camera? You son of a bitch. Well done. Yes. Cinnamon raisin bread. Oh, toast that with a ton of butter. You'd be set. Yes. Oh, bravo, sir. Oh yeah, zoom in on that. We're watching you now. We're all watching you full screen.
Ah, that's good. That's good.
Bravo, bravo. Oh.
I will say, if you haven't had a pickle beer, which is a Texas thing, Texas product, it goes really well with all these Genevers for sure. I'm in LA now, but I just moved from Texas and I brought like 2 cases of it with me. So
If you want any more, I can't find it. Just let me know.
We might need you to, because I have not had it and now very interested.
Well, I live in LA, so if you want one, I can give you one.
Maybe come by Umbrella anytime later this week, and let's have some tacos and drink some pickle beer.
Okay.
Done, done, and done. Guys, this is amazing. I've had such a fun time. I hope everyone else has learned a little bit, got to indulge and enjoy a perfect afternoon of cheese, Genever, and education from Pete here. Do we have
And
any?
from you, Jack, and from you. Don't underestimate yourself.
I'm just here for the entertainment. The knowledge is coming out of you. I just.
Great job you did.
Thank you, thank you.
Well, I just want to thank you guys so much. Thanks to everyone for joining the tasting, and of course to both Zach and Pete for leading us through this incredible tasting. I learned a lot, and I'm sure everybody out there did too. Just a quick reminder, if you want to catch more programming like this, make sure that you go and like and follow the Portland Cocktail Week Facebook page. We also have a YouTube channel. If you prefer that, you can head on over to YouTube/PDXCW, and you can go follow us there, and you'll get the first dibs on all of this info. We're going to have classes on most weekdays, and there's an archive of all of the classes that we've had in the past over there as well. And if you want to find a little bit of extra content from Pete, we're going to have that over on the Portland Cocktail Week Instagram in just a few minutes. So thank you all so much for spending your afternoon with us. This was wonderful, and I can't wait to see all of you very soon, hopefully for a cup stucha.
Hi.
Thank you, Lindsay.
I hope so too.
Have a great night, everyone.
And Lindsay did not say go follow Lush Life, but follow Lush Life as well, and you will know all the ins and outs of everything happening in the industry outside and inclusive of Portland Cocktail Week. So please do that.
Okay.
Thank you again for being here. It means the world to have you and to do a cup stucha with you.
Jack,
can't wait.
Thank you very much, and I hope to see you soon in Amsterdam in my distillery over there.
Oh my gosh, as soon as I can travel and come back to the US in one piece and they let me in, I will be there, first flight.
Yeah, let me know. Let me know if you plan to come.
Done and
It's a
done.
deal, eh? It's a deal.
I think my girlfriend just heard that, so she's nodding her head. We're going, we're
Okay.
going.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye.
And enjoy Geneva.
We will. Bye.
All right.
Thank you all so
Everybody.
much. That was awesome.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Great show. Cheers.
Roast.
Roast.
Roast.